Greetings, quenchers and beautiful people. This is Gina, formulator here with Quench Naturel. I am wearing a mask, and it's because I'm out here in the desert during COVID-19 on a desert hike before it gets too hot out here. I am here in the Sonoran desert, and I'm going to go ahead and remove my mask because not many people are around me, but I do just want to mention that not only during this time, but here in the desert, we are in a valley. You can see there are mountains kind of all around me here in the desert. And that means that the air quality here, especially in the summer, can get really polluted. There's lots of dust. All of the emissions from vehicles and the actual asphalt and road itself permeates in this heat. So this mask actually is protecting me from some of that in the environment. I do want to talk to you, however, about the plants here in the Sonoran Desert. These plants have been used by curaderos, shaman, and healers throughout history and for centuries. These healers basically took the physical, spiritual, the emotional beliefs of the people and what was going on around and inside them, and with meditation and herbs and the plants here in the desert were able to cure people. It was a true holistic approach, and even today we find our scientists reaching to some of these plants to find cures and vaccines for things all over for our planet. And here in the desert, in the Sonoran Desert specifically, good morning, we have some of the hardiest plants in the world that can withstand amazing heat. So, and just, really intense environment. So this morning I'm going to talk to you about some of the plants here, some of the plants that we use at Quench Naturel, and the history, the medicinal purposes. So we're going to be looking at the jojoba bush. We'll look at brittle bush, the cholla cactus, and creosote bush. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the aloe plant. So we'll be showing you those in just a moment.
Hi, so my name is Alana, and I am the second half of the two-mom business, Quench Naturel. And so what is Quench Naturel? We make toxin-free body care. We believe that the plants are what we need to heal. We believe that it is critical that we remove toxins from the things that we are putting on our body. There are three main ways that we as humans get toxins into our system. We get it through the air that we breathe, we get it through the food that we eat, and finally we get it through the things that we put on our skin. And anything that we put on our skin is absorbed into our bloodstream within 26 seconds. So it is really important. And even though we've been kind of trained to think that you could put just about anything in, it's not that big of a deal, it really is a huge deal. So today, Gina's going to be taking us through the desert, showing us different desert plants, right here in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is part of the Sonoran Desert. And it is just absolutely amazing how many healing plants are right here, and the hardiness of these plants, because they have to survive at these extreme temperatures, have made them amazing healers for the body. And not only do they heal one aspect, they have healing benefits that take care of the entire person. And that is absolutely amazing when you think about the fact that nature has come in and supplied us with everything that we need. And so as we're doing this, what we're hoping to impart is thinking about how plants and nature can really take the place of these chemicals and pharmaceuticals. And the thing that's really interesting to keep in mind is that most of the pharmaceuticals are built initially off of the plant, and then they mutate it and change it to do other things. But it's when they do that that when you watch those commercials and they say all these great things that the drug does, and then they quickly run through all of the problems, all of those problems are created because of the unnatural things that they've done to the natural plant. So I hope that we're able to share something new with you today and explain some things to you. And hopefully you'll check out Quench Naturel when you're done.
The Sonoran Desert makes up the northern part of Mexico into southern Arizona up until just about 3,000 feet. And the Sonoran Desert is probably best known for saguaro cactus, the saguaro flower. You can see the buds up on the top there. The saguaro flower is the Arizona state flower. It's a beautiful flower. It actually looks like a big daisy. And this is the time of year that it starts opening up between spring and summer. And you can see that a saguaro cactus doesn't grow arms until it's between 60 and 80 years old, and they can live for about 200 years. Again, another strong plant here in our beautiful Sonoran Desert. There you go. They're just everywhere.
So you can't hardly think of the desert without thinking of those huge cactuses, the saguaros. But what's really interesting is that although people tend to think of those throughout all of deserts, they're only present here in the Sonoran Desert. And the saguaros have been being used for thousands of years by the indigenous people. The whole body of the cactus was used to help build their homes, to help make tools, to do these different things. But it's the flowers at the top of these plants that are the absolute healers. They are high in vitamin C. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, it is an immune builder, it is an anti-aging property. They have wonderful fiber, so they help our bodies to function properly. They are great for pregnant women because they are super nutrient dense, and the flowers, the syrup that comes from that flower can actually be used to help women during the childbirth process. They also have high hydration. The amount of water in those flowers are equivalent to what is in a watermelon or a cucumber. So they're really wonderful. The saguaro has a ton of amazing properties that help the entire body to be healthy. And that's what plants do in general.
Prickly pear cactus. Yep, this is the prickly pear, and we can see that we haven't had a lot of rain because the petals are very thin. One thing you notice here in the desert is when it rains, all of our cactus plump up because they store water in them. So this is the prickly pear cactus. I can't touch it really because you can see the spines on it. What they do with this is actually edible. So the petals are used, they're cut open, they can be applied directly to a injury. It's for acute action, so it will start healing immediately on contact. It's also used, you can eat them, so they take out the spines and then they slice them down the middle, and then they grill them and slice them up, and they're called nopalitos. And then the fruit, which the fruit is right here, when that fruit gets really big, it becomes purple, and they take it and they squeeze the juice out, and they use it to make syrups or jams and jellies. And what actually is in the plant itself are betalains, and these betalains are very high in antioxidants. Also, amino acids are in this. So you can eat this and it's very nutritious. Actually, you can see here the buds growing. Those are the flowers, and then that's where the fruit comes from. So another great hardy plant that is still used today.
So another amazing plant that we have here in the desert is the prickly pear or paddle cactus. And most of you are very familiar with what they look like. They have an oval paddle shape, the green cactus part of them. They're more flat, and out of the top of them will grow the prickly pear flower, and it's red and it will actually bloom. There are lots of health benefits, like so many other things that are here in the desert. So body-wise, it helps with reduction of cholesterol, controlling your blood pressure, and inflammation. It's amazing how many plants and different things look at inflammation, which inflammation stops the flow of blood in our body. And when we do that, it leads to all sorts of joint pain and different things. So my point in bringing that up is to say, look at all the things that Mother Nature puts into our environment to help us so that we don't suffer from inflammation. And when we disrupt and when we stop using these natural plants, we get sick and we get ailments that nature already predisposed and tried to help us solve. But going back to the prickly pear, it also is high in antioxidants. And that brings me to another thing. We always hear about antioxidants, but what are antioxidants? So an antioxidant is something that stops oxidation. Oxidation is the breaking down of cells, and it is caused by free radicals. So what are free radicals? Free radicals are unstable molecules within our body. So we can drink or eat things that are antioxidant to help our cells internally, but we can also put antioxidant things on our face, and that helps us with the fine lines and all of these different things. We actually use prickly pear butter because of its high antioxidant and vitamin K content. That vitamin K is actually a skin evener, a skin tone evener, meaning it is great for our under the eye. It takes those dark circles out. If you have a scar or different spots, it will help to even that skin tone. So we have specifically put it in our Refine Firming Neck and Eye Serum. You can also use it in other areas, like let's say you do have a scar or spots on your face that you're wanting to lighten, you could put our Refine on that as well. It also has the oleic acid, and this helps to draw moisture, which also plumps up the skin. So
Here we have the jojoba bush, which can get up to 10 feet tall and grows about 8 feet wide. There is a male and a female bush, and you can see the leaves have a vertical orientation, which minimizes the heat absorption in the summer. It's amazing how these plants in the desert adapt. The flowers, the oil from the seeds are used in lubricants and cosmetics, specifically in cosmetics because it mimics the sebum that is in our skin. And it's a very rich, highly antioxidant oil. It helps with problems like eczema and psoriasis. It absorbs into the skin easily. So again, another one of our wonderful desert plants.
So another really great skin-loving desert plant is the jojoba plant. Most of us have heard of jojoba oil. Jojoba oil is extremely rich and emollient. It actually mimics the sebum in our skin. Having balanced sebum allows for our skin to be rich and shiny and plump. Sebum holds in the moisture that we need, and while blocking out different things that we don't need in our skin. So we use jojoba oil in many of our products, one of which is our facial line. And a lot of people will say, well, if your skin line has a lot of oils in it, I don't know if that's good for me because I have oily skin or I have acne. And the reality is, it's not about the amount of oil in the product. It's about the types of oils and the formulation of that. So the types of oils, you always want to look for non-comedogenic oils, which we only use lowest comedogenic possible. And you want to look at what types of oils and how do they balance. Jojoba oil is a great addition to any skin, whether it's your face or your body. It's an amazing ingredient to add to any of your products. So
We also have the brittle bush here, which is drying up because the temperatures have gotten high here in the desert. So the brittle bush, you can see the remnants of the yellow flowers. This bush was used, the flowers, the leaves, the stems, to make tinctures and teas. And actually, if it was applied to the chest or the neck area, it was used to reduce inflammation for people who had bronchitis.
So another really great plant here in the desert that is used for healing is the brittle bush. And this one's a little bit different because it really doesn't have skin benefits like what you would think we would use. But what it does do is it helps your teeth. So what the Native Americans would do is take the leaves and burn them down, and what they'd be left with was a gummy paste. This paste could be applied to their teeth that were loose and stabilize them and heal them in that way. So it's just one more example of how Mother Nature really comes to aid all of the things that cause us issues. And while we do not use the brittle bush in our tooth polish, we do use only 100% food grade ingredients in our toothpaste. And that is another product that is just chock full of unnecessary chemicals and ingredients, some of them pretty toxic. And we don't need to have those toxins in things. So what we would like you to do is just really keep an eye on all of the things that you use daily and ask yourself, why is this ingredient in here? What is it for? And if there's not a really good answer, maybe there's an alternative.
Now the aloe plant is similar in the way it looks in appearance, but the aloe is much more succulent. It was brought to the Sonoran Desert, and it actually thrives here. And we all know if you have an aloe plant and you get a cut or a sting, you can cut that plant and fillet the leaf and just put it right onto your skin. Also, after a sunburn, it's cooling and hydrating, and it's got incredible antimicrobial benefits.
So you just heard Gina tell you all of the healing benefits of the aloe vera plant. And as she mentioned, it is not indigenous to the desert. And it actually is not related to the agave plant. But what it is an amazing healer. And it is a very aquaceous plant. And so at Quench Naturel, since we don't like to use water, our thought on water is this: it's a cheap filler. It has really no skin benefit to you. Water is wonderful to drink. Water is wonderful to bathe in. But in terms of putting it on your skin, it doesn't really do anything. And when it evaporates, it actually takes moisture out of your skin. So that's why we do not use it in our products. When we need something aquaceous, we will use aloe vera juice or gel in its place. We use aloe vera gel in our hyaluronic acid serum. We also use we use aloe vera juice in our botanical toners that are infused with fruit enzymes. When we also need other aqueous things, we will use hydrosols. Hydrosols are steam infused waters that contain extracts and enzymes from plants. So they do contain some benefit to them. But the majority of our products we use solely aloe vera in. And as we are in the process of researching and putting together the formula for what will become our body lotion, we are definitely going to be using some aloe in it.
And this here is the creosote bush. The creosote bush is iconic to the desert, not just for the way it looks, but the way its fragrance, the way it smells. When it rains here in the desert, the entire desert smells of the creosote bush. So you can see here the very small leaves. They have a waxy finish. This plant was used by the Native Americans. They would use it to make teas and tinctures, and it's really good for joint pain and inflammation. It was used on burns. It's a very, very hardy and resilient bush that produces an oil that can really help with things that ail you.
So now I want to talk to you about my absolute favorite desert plant, and that's the creosote plant. It's also known as the chaparral plant. Some people call it the rain plant because when it does rain here in the desert, it emits a very strong earthy fragrance that if you're hiking shortly after a rain here in the desert, that scent just fills the entire air. The chaparral plant is absolutely amazing. It is one of the most ancient plants, not just here, but in the entire world. Its DNA, plant DNA, actually dates back like hundreds, if not millions of years. And what is really amazing is that these plants actually communicate with each other through their root system. They tend to grow in groups because they're actually social, and they kind of talk to each other and tell each other what areas to grow in. This plant is so smart that it only quote unquote breathes in the morning because that is the time when it's going to lose least of its water, because obviously here in the desert it's really arid. It also grows according to what it needs. So its leaves may grow downward, and this, or branches and leaves grow downward, and this allows when it does rain, for that water to run down and water the center of the plant, the base. Or it may grow with its leaves upward, and what that does is it means that its leaves, as they die and fall off, they fall into the center of the plant and work their way down and act as a natural composting and fertilizing thing. I mean, this plant is absolutely amazing, and I guess that's because it's, as I said, one of the oldest plants, so it's like 1,000,000 years old. It's learned how to adapt and to keep itself alive. The one weakness that it does have is fire. Unlike a lot of other plants that after it burns, it will come back, the creosote will not. And what's really interesting about that is that the creosote actually won't grow in areas where grass is. Why? Because grass can burn, and grass also is an accelerant to fire, but grass will come back, whereas the creosote plant won't come back, and it's actually will not grow any place where grass is because it's become smart enough to know its environment and its weaknesses. So it's so amazing. Another really interesting fact about creosote is that in the 1930s, it was discovered that creosote could actually preserve food, and it began being used to preserve meats and different things. And it was in the 1970s that the FDA banned that use. And what it's now coming out to show is that the creosote bush actually helps to head off cancerous tumor formation. So you see that connection there about being in the food and us not taking it, and the rise of cancer and these different things. Plants were put here to help us heal. I'm not I mean, the FDA does what it does for a reason, but I have a lot of issues with it because the FDA is also the group that does not regulate natural. And so what that means is that anybody can put natural on a product, sell it to you, but it doesn't matter what's in that product. I could literally go to my car, drain the oil out of it, put it in cute little bottles, and tell you that it's the oil of life and you should put it on your face, and I could sell it to you. So long as I told you that it was motor oil, if you bought it and put it on your face, I'm legally allowed to call that natural. And that's one of the FDA things. So the FDA was also responsible for taking creosote out of the preservatives things, and it's been proven that creosote helps to stop cancer. So very interesting. But in terms of the actual healing and the skin healing things, I don't normally like to read off of papers because I find it makes me not as natural, but there's so many things that this plant does for healing. So let's talk about it. It alleviates rheumatic pain, so joints throughout your whole body. That's due to the fact that it's an anti-inflammatory. Stomach pain, chicken pox, snake bites, arthritis, bowel cramps, gas, cold, chronic skin disorders like eczema and psoriasis and dandruff and what else? Herpes, dermatitis. It has, I'm standing here reading, menstrual cramps, stomach problems, premenstrual syndromes, diabetes, gallbladder, kidney stones, diarrhea, urinary tract infections, upper respiratory tract infections, the list, oh my gosh, gingivitis. You see why I'm having to read this off? There's so many amazing things, and that's what we at Quench Naturel are trying to do, is really bring people's awareness to the power of plants, use them as much as possible when we can in our products, and really take advantage of what Mother Earth has put right here for us. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make a tincture with the chaparral plant. Hello everybody, and so now we are in my kitchen and we're going to be closing out our training by showing you how to make your own herbal tincture. It's really very simple, and there's just a few little key tricks and tips that I'm going to go over and show you. So of course, because we are in the desert and this whole thing has been about desert plants, I went out of my community, went around the corner, grabbed some creosote. So this is what fresh creosote looks like. And it is such a fragrant, amazing plant. As I told you, it's kind of my favorite. But it was so cool because I took a whole bunch of it off the bush around the corner, and they grow all over here in the desert. They grow out on the paths, but as I said, I just went out of my door and or out of my gate and found this around the corner. So when I had to run some more errands, and I had the creosote in my car, and every time I came back to the car, it was just full of this wonderful essence of creosote. So it's just absolutely amazing and natural and earthy, and I love this stuff. So this is the fresh herb. Now, when you are making a fresh herb tincture, you want to do okay, let me back up. There are different ways that you can do tinctures. You want to use the measured method. There is the folk method that basically says, throw some herbs in a mason jar, put your solvent, which is going to be your alcohol or your glycerin, depending on what you want, into the jar, and set it in the closet, and come back 30 days later, and there you go. But the problem is when you do things like that with herbs, you don't necessarily know what you're getting. Some herbs are very light but have a lot of volume, like let's say a calendula flower that is light and airy. Other things are much more dense, like your dried lavender, which are very small and more dense. So if you just use the eye method and you throw a bunch of lavender in here, you might get a pretty strong tincture. But if you throw a bunch of calendula in here, even though it could take up the entire jar, it's actually not as much as the lavender. Does that make sense? So what I did is I pre-measured my, my creosote here. And what I'm going to do is for fresh herb, because this is fresh, you do a 1-to-2 ratio, meaning 1 part plant, 1 part solvent. And if you're using a dry herb, you're going to do 1-to-5 ratio. So in this case, this whole thing is about 30 grams. I weighed this on a scale in the other room, 30 grams of plant. So I'm doing 60 grams of my alcohol. And I'll talk a bit about how you choose your alcohol in a minute. So it's 1-to-2 ratio because it's fresh. If this was dried and I had 30 grams of dried herb, then I would be doing 150, 30 times 5. Yeah, 100, and I can do math. 150 milligrams of alcohol to 30 grams of stuff. So I'm gonna tilt this down so you can kind of see what I am doing. So I got my food processor here, and you know, you don't have to grind up your herb, but it does help. The reason being is it helps to open up and it helps to expose more of the plant surface to what you're doing. This is a fairly small herb, but it's especially effective when you're dealing with things that are more bark-like or bigger. It just helps for the alcohol or the solvent. You could be using glycerin to mix really, really well. So I've got the 30 grams of chaparral along with this 60 grams of, or milligrams, whatever you want to call it, of the solvent, and I just pour it in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and grind that up for a few minutes and just get that whipped down. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never made a tincture with fresh herbs before. So I'm used to doing this with a lot more liquid than what I have here, but this is the way that you're going to make a tincture that actually works. Because if you just do it by the eye, if you've ever had a tincture and you go, it didn't really work, chances are it was made not with the measured method, but with the folk method. And when that happens, the tincture is not as strong. So I just kind of ground it, and you know what, I'm looking at this and I actually think I want to grind it a little bit more. You can also do this in a regular blender, and it might have actually been better for me to do this in a regular blender. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's much better. And then my hands are clean. We're gonna take this off and pour it into my mason jar. And you know what? I saved these for everything. This one actually had my ginger lime infused local honey from Carefree Carefree raw honey people up in Carefree, Arizona. You always want to, if you can, get some local honey because that's going to really help you with your allergies. The bees, they get their pollen from local plants, and by taking that honey, it helps you to build up your immunity to those plants so you don't end up getting really bad allergies. Anyway, so I'm putting this into, and there's a few extra leaves here, I'll put that in as well. I'm putting this into my tincture jar. And wow, this is gonna be a lot of stuff. As I said, I've never made a tincture with fresh herbs. I've always done it with the others. So I'm used to a lot more liquid in this. So basically, this is what we've got here. And that alcohol is going to draw the essence of the plant out over time. So we put this in, and I'm gonna lift you up so I don't have to keep bending down. So we put this in our mason jar. What you want to do is every day, at least once, if you can twice, you go and you shake it up. But you store it somewhere dark and kind of not too hot and not too cool. So I'm just gonna stick it in one of my kitchen cabinets, and every day for the next month, I'm gonna do this. Depending on certain herbs, they take 3 weeks, some take 6 weeks. A good rule of thumb, if you're not 100% sure, is do a good 30 days. What you wanna do is mark your jar so you know exactly what date you put it away, what it is, and what kind of alcohol content you did. So in this case, it is May 21st, or I think it's May 21st. May 21st, this is creosote, and I did 50% alcohol. Now, in terms of what sort of alcohol or solvent you're going to use, when you are using dry herb, you can do a 50% alcohol solution, meaning that this is 100% proof, it's 50% alcohol by volume. When you are doing dry, technically you are supposed to use a, it's like 69 to 85% pure. So that would be like an Everclear alcohol or something, a grain alcohol that's an even higher proof than 100. I couldn't find any of it. As you know, with COVID going on, everybody's buying up all this stuff to clean and to do different things and disinfect. So I had to go with this. I'm hoping that this tincture will work out well. I might leave it a little bit longer to accommodate for the lower alcohol content, but it's just that simple to make a tincture. So I will be providing some overall guidelines on how to do this. It's very simple. You can do it with just about anything, and your different plants are going to have obviously different healing aspects, and that's the main thing, you know. Quench Naturel, we were made to, or we came together as two moms to help heal our families. And we began researching herbs and just got really into all of the powerful benefits of them. We do the body care aspect of it, but it's great to apply it to apply herbs and botanicals to your body, to consume herbs and botanicals, and then let's take care of this environment so that we have better air to breathe. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. I am here to answer anything that I can. For anybody who's watching, I am going to be creating a discount code, The Natural Mix, for 15% off of an order. Again, any questions you have. So we at Quench Naturel, we have a natural healing line that has our toothpaste and our deodorant and our healing balm. That healing balm is chock full of so many essential oils and herbs. It is just amazing, the powerful nature of that balm. It's crazy. And then we also have our Q24 line, which is our botanical beauty line. It is a vegan facial line. We have day and night creams. We have kombucha facial scrub. We've got fruit infused botanical toners. Just phenomenal stuff. It really works. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching us, and let's try and be healthy. Thank you.